That as I'm painting, if you want to ask questions, feel free to. But if you don't, I start talking about how I met my husband.
We're going to ask questions, huh?
Yeah, that's the way it goes, yeah.
So how'd you meet your husband?
It's too early, then what am I going to do?
Wait. Save it for later.
You save it for later, it's a good story. He gets scared, he goes, "You really do that? You really tell people about how I met you?" I go, "Yeah." But anyhow, basically, just a little bit about me, which tends to be my favorite subject, but I started as an art director. I was like a lot of you, I painted on the side since I was 5 years old. That's how my mom kept me out of jail. And her worst nightmare was that I would somehow be in front of a group of people painting in front of them. So this was I never wanted to be a fine artist. I loved graphic design. I love everything about it. I then took a workshop with John Salomon, and he changed my life. We're taking the workshop, it was about 6 years ago, and we're doing abstract, which I know nothing about. And he looks at my painting, he goes, "I could finish this painting." And I looked at him and I said, "You just wrecked my whole workshop." And then he's the one that recommended me for the article from Ones to Watch. So he destroyed my life. But because like everybody, I just painted. I didn't know I was good. I mean, I liked it and all that, but I thought there's a big world out there. There must be a lot of other people better than me. So it's basically, I've been blessed with a lot of people that have been helping me. But my background in painting is really my background in advertising and graphic design and everything I do. So what I do is that, and people, are there any other graphic designers here? We think a little bit different than a painter. We think deadline and things like that. But most graphic designers are either want to be photographers or want to be painters. I wasn't want to be, I used to do ads for Hasselblad, and my boss was phenomenal photographers. I would go on vacation, my photographs were out of focus. So after the digital, when digital came in, and because I'm very cheap and you could take a lot of pictures, I ended up having some really good photographs. So that changed my paintings because I was able to do get the more details. So what I do is that when I'm in New York, again, one of the perks about taking photographs in New York is that people that watch you take the photographs, they don't care. You never could get arrested for being a stalker taking a photograph in New York. So I take a lot of photographs, and if I take the same scene, hopefully I'll get the design right in the photograph. Because if you take it, and that's one of the perks of digital photography. So then after that, I still crop it a little bit. I look at my photos in Photoshop. I try to find a scene that I like. Right now, until I got married, I hated people. So most people when they start, you take a scene in New York, right? First you try to wait till there's nobody in there so that way you don't have to paint them. Then you start and you want them to face backwards, because if they're facing backwards, it's easier, right? And then I got married. I said, let me look at the person. So now what intrigues me now is more the story when I see, I make up a story of the relationship what people are talking about. And the New York scene became more and more of the not as important as I've gotten older. So that's where I start. I do a lot of prep work. And again, when I used to take classes, when I was working, the teachers would tell you to do thumbnails, and I would say, yeah, right. I got 2 hours to paint. I'm not doing a thumbnail. I'm going to do a painting. I was the teacher's worst nightmare. I did everything wrong, okay? And then now that I'm teaching, all of a sudden I'm doing these thumbnails, and I'm doing what all my teachers told me to do, and my paintings got better. So mostly my teaching ability has been in the back of my head saying, oh, damn, that teacher was right. So I do this first, and this gives me an idea, and then the way I talk, because again, I talk more like an ad person than a painter. I go, what's my story? What do I want? What do I want? What excites me, and what do I want to leave? Where's my center of attention? And for this one, it just cracked me up looking at this guy say, what what is he looking at? So that, you know, it was the communication to the people. He was going to be my dominant thing. The next thing I do is I do a tight sketch, like, and this is, I use a Stillman Burn sketchbook a lot, or else I use whatever paper is in my house, you know, to do that. But I do something like this, and this gives me an idea of what colors I'm going to use. And that's my step 2. And then I try to figure out the colors, like I play a game, and like I usually pick about 3 colors to start off my painting with. And like, you know, I don't really, again, because remember I told you I didn't listen to my teachers that well. I knew somewhere when I was a kid that my colors that I did naturally, so whenever a teacher mentioned anything about color in classes, cool and try, whatever those things were, I thought this was a good time for me to phase out. So like a lot of the things is that I do is like it just became out, that part became out of exploratory. Now I'm trying to figure it out because when students ask me, it's kind of nice to know the answer. But so here, like I picked and like I use a pretty like something I learned as I gotten more into painting. I don't use that many colors. I may have a little green in there, but I only use it if I'm desperate. But I found like you don't really have to like spend a lot of money on paints. Like I use very limited colors, and then like at a point, like, you know, that like whatever mood I'm in. Like right now I'm in my purple phase. I use one extravagant color that makes no sense to be there. But I mean, and that's just what I've been doing lately. One of my favorite teaching stories, I thought I was brilliant, like, 'cause black is not a good color to use and white is not a good color to use. I think there's a point that you can use it, just because you find ways of doing anything. So I have beginner students, I told them no black, no white on your palette. I thought this was brilliant, right? You know, genius, right? So the next week, because like I think you get to a point of a painting where you're 3/4 done, where you forget what anybody does, panic goes in and any color goes. And I see this painting this morning, I go, I think you used black over there. You didn't do the blue, green thing I told you to. I didn't use black. She goes, I use Payne's gray. So, and I think, and then I kind of was impressed with these things, because I think that's what you got to do. It's like, for me, it's like, how could I, you know, you learn the rules, it's like, but how could you break the rules? You know, and that's usually the way I spend my life. But, so then to do this, because somebody asked me how I do my perspective and all this, I'm not, here's where I have psychological issues. I think I told John, when I was a kid, I used to think it was a good idea to read Usher books and do those like weird drawings, like, and I thought this was like a lot of fun. And that's how I figured out how to do perspective, is that I just would do these things for some sicko reason. And I continued doing that, you know, so perspective, you know, and basically perspective is really easy if you think about it. Things at the back are smaller, things in the front are bigger. They have to follow the rules. And if you just do that, it's not that difficult. And like that's what I usually do. I dissect everything. If you use your photograph, right? God, and I'm Jewish, I'm not the most spiritual person, but God does a good thing about making perspective the angles the right way. I take my photograph, and I don't have my ruler here, but I would take lines and figure out where my vanishing lines right from the photograph and follow the photograph. It's a great way for a beginner to do it. And then as you get bolder, you break the rules a little bit more. But that's how I do it. And I use guides. If you see like that I did an Illustrator that I threw on my photos. And those guides tell me which each box is going to be in. In between there, you start moving it. But with all those things, we're doing this. Somewhere along the way, it works out for me. But it just, it takes a lot of time. Like I said, this drawing here that I started, this took me maybe a day, because I didn't, because I didn't do as many things in it. But if you've seen some of my bigger paintings, they take me sometimes 6 months to do. I found a way not to make money on watercolors. Yeah.
Question.
Sure.
You're painting from a photograph. Is there anything you paint what you visually feel in your mind?
I have no, you have to have this is what I've learned, okay, is that, first of all, I don't have a good imagination, you know, so I think, and the next thing is that what I'm doing now more is that if you see the people that do plein air, they really look and see what they're drawing. I think you got to do plein air, you got to do figure drawing, you got to do all these things. They may not be in your painting, but then you learn how to draw things better. I don't, when I'm doing a painting, add a person over here, because if I don't have some kind of reference to it, it's going to look like I added a person in there. If I could Photoshop that person and throw him in the right perspective and nobody else could tell, then I would do it. I try my darndest to get the design right here, you know, so that way, you know, my worst nightmare is that, and it has happened to me, I do a drawing, right, and then all of a sudden there's a big area that a size 6 person has to fit in, and I didn't know it. If I could, and so then I have to figure out what to put in that place. I don't want to do that if I could possibly do that. So if I could do as much prep work beforehand, then, you know, I don't have that problem. Does that make sense?
Where does the creativity start?
Creativity starts when I walk out the door. When I take the photograph, because I'm taking about 30, 40 photographs to just using one. I'm changing the crop of the photo to fit where I want my story to be. I'm altering the colors to do it. Then I'm doing this. So it's from day one. Like, I'm basically, I think like most artists, a shy person, and like words are not my best. If anybody has ever got an email with me, they'll prove this. Word is not my best quality, right? So the way I communicate is that if I succeeded, is that I walk in a show or something and I see somebody looking at a painting and I see them getting a story out of it. That's my success. You know, so I'm directing, like, because I'm not going to paint the whole everything there. You have to choose every second what you choose to paint and what you don't choose to paint. You know, like, now, so that's kind of how I started. And those steps, as I painfully talked about, those are longer than most of my paintings. Like, that's, you know, where the prep work's done, and it's worth it. So then, anyhow, in this one, what I did, the first step I do, and I've just started doing demos 2 years ago, and like, again, I'm cheap and lazy, okay? So when you're lazy, that means you don't use like like a blower. No, the
Dryer.
hair dryer, right? Because then if I have my studio on my second floor. That would mean I would have to go downstairs or something to get that thing, and I don't use those. So when I would do a demo, I didn't want to use them either, and the paint wouldn't dry. So then what happens when you paint on wet paint? It becomes mush. So brilliantly, I thought, like, I did that step at home, so that way I could get right into the details. Now, this is for 3 days, right? So I could finish this painting with you guys? No.
Smaller audience.
What? Yeah.
Be a smaller audience.
Yeah, every day, yeah. But so what I've done is that when later on you can see I have paintings at all different stages that I here, and I brought that because, and also when I finish this one, and I will someday, it'll be on my I could either send John like the finished piece you can put on your site, or you'll if you want to Facebook me, it'll be there. I think I said it, and I probably will say a lot of more wrong words throughout the day. I'm a Facebook slut. So if you want to, I put all my paintings up there, whatever I do. If you guys want to Facebook me, you know, I'm pretty funny and nice. So anyhow, that's kind of where I'm at. Now, my style of painting is that, again, like what I said before, the people are going to be more important than anything else. So, you know, and again, my worst nightmare here would have been to try to paint a head of a person, because like my people will not look like people. I'm not a portrait person. Like, people have asked me to do portraits. I'm like, what part are you nuts? You know, because like I could do this, because if it goes in the show, this is our secret. And like, so the person's not going to look like that. You know, so anyhow, so what I decided on this painting here, if you look at my notes, I'll just, you know, you'll see the skin, I was going to use a burnt sienna, throw in the red, and that will be the skin over here. For the cool colors, I use one of the professional words I don't usually use, but this is a real good group, so I have to use some of those words. I'm going to use ultramarine blue, and I'm going to use, it's good, yeah, I got this the right way. I'm going to throw in the, and I can't pronounce this right, but I know you guys, someone could, Elysium red?
Alizarin.
Yeah.
Alizarin crimson.
Right. I'm going to use that as my two colors. I'm probably going to throw in these cerulean blue a little bit. And the lavender purple has just been my go-to color for emergencies lately, so that's going to be in there too. Oh, and then also credensed gold. And like that's where I'll start. Yeah. I need a translator for what I say.
What was the name of the purple?
The purple, Elysium.
Alizarin.
Right.
Alizarin, that's dark red.
Yeah, I shouldn't use that color in a demo, should I?
Another name.
Yeah.
What's the violet? I think that's what they meant by the.
The violet. Oh, that's an easy one to pronounce. Lavender.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my one. And also, like, what I've been starting to use is that those that have seen my website, I do beer bottles. I started using for those like the golden watercolors, and like I've been testing them out because of those colors. I used it on this thing here, which I think is a raffle thing here. But anyhow, you see how bright these colors are, and those are the golden paints. And like I'm slowly transcending into using them because like one of my problems are with my paintings, because I'm here to tell you my issues, is that if you see like my paintings, I'm working on contrast always and bright colors, and my paintings get washed out. Watercolors in general get washed out. So these colors, like you put them in, it's like, oh my God, it's the same brightness when you put on. So it's helping me out of my issues. You know, and so like a lot of times I'll use like the dark colors at the end of my painting, you know, I'll throw them in so that way I get that pop into it. So I'll just throw that in, but they're really cool. And like my goal is when I run out of these, because I'm not going to throw these out, one of my nuts, but I'm going to start popping in the golden colors to see if that really makes a big change in my paintings. So anyhow, so before we came here, what I did is that I threw a wash in the background, and that was with the credensed gold and the that too, yeah. And with a little bit of the purple, and then in the front, I put the shadows in already, but I figured you guys could figure that part out. I also put a little masking in some areas because just because the end of my painting, what I want to have is a real dark and a real white. So I'm going to start off with and a lot of things. I'm going to start off with just a little of the blue. I believe in a messy palette. A little of the red. And I'm just going to start blocking things in a little bit.
Did you use a white mask?
Excuse me?
Masking fluid? Did you use a white mask?
I use the one you buy at Dick Blick's right now. That one seems to be working with no problem. And my trick is that I try not to stay in the lines. Like in here, over here, like if you see with her thing, if I paint, I'm going to paint. Now I'm going to just throw in some of this red, a little of the gold. Because like if I paint this light here, I could still, I don't have to worry about, you know, I could go with the darker colors that have no problem.
What kind of brush are you using?
Oh,
That's a French.
this is a Princeton Neptune brush. My favorite brush. Do anybody know Denise Collins? This was given to me by her. I don't know where she is right now, when my business, does anybody know where she is? Or
Where she is.
she moved to North Carolina. I know what happened is that, again, when I started my business in graphic design, I was start taking paint classes, and I just bought like computer stuff. So she was trying to get me to buy paintbrushes, and they're expensive. And I kind of didn't want to say I had no money, so she gave me this brush. So it's always been one of my favorite things just because she gave it to me. She's such a nice lady.
What kind of brush is that?
This is a flat brush. I use a lot of flat brushes, and like usually I use that, and I just to get the so I don't get it. I get more of a flat area in it. What I usually do is that like I usually will start using a small brush way too quick, and I'll try not to do that.
But is that synthetic or is it,
Oh, it's synthetic. Yeah, I'm cheap.
this one also?
Yeah. This brush I think might have been more expensive. Some of them I got I did last year. I did Bryant Park, and they give you a $500 supply thing, right? So all of a sudden, like I'm going, you know, like they said to me like how I said, how much should I spend? I go, what should I spend? And I go, you don't tell a female, here's $500.
Yeah. How many pairs of shoes did you buy?
Excuse me? I know, well. So I got myself my first real brushes from that. Any more questions?
You don't worry about not being able to erase them.
I don't erase the lines, and it's because again, it started. Some people thought I had some deep-rooted thing and emotional reason for doing it, and it basically started because I was lazy. And you know, to me, but then if I had to give you an intellectual answer, I kind of think that it adds to it because I don't, you know, like I have two nightmares. As a teacher, my worst nightmare is to have a class smile and they have all my, every one of them has these lines and look like my paintings. You know, that's my worst nightmare. But on the other hand, is that I have no problem showing people where I came from. Like, why should I hide it? It's, you know, what I did. You know, so. And again, like, you see, I use very light because I'm, again, cheap. Now, one thing I'm always waiting for also, then, this is also another, I think this is a size 10 Raphael brush. One brushes that I like that are very cheap is the, well, this isn't one of them, Rumbacher brushes.
Yeah.
They're really cool. I try also to get in my painting because, again, one of my problems is contrast. So the only way I know how to do it is like in one area, add a little bit darker than I want to, so that way I know where I have to go. Oh, a little other detail. I don't use watercolor paper, and that's because I draw much, and I use a Strathmore wet media board. And I guess that also comes from my art director background. I hate watercolor paper. And I think, because it's, when you draw on it, if you draw like I do, like, it stays on the, it's not for drawing, you know, real detailed things. Somewhere along the way, it ends up, I blur it out, and then there's like, this gushy marks there, and everything goes wrong. But when this paper that I use is like, first of all, I've been using it now for 10, 15 years, and I think when you know your paper, you have, whatever paper it is, you have a better result because you know what's going to happen to it. It's like a marriage. Well, what do I know about marriage? I've only been married 5 years. I know nothing. But for people told me about long marriages, you know, you get to know what works or what doesn't work with it. So with this, like this paper, I could erase it I have erased the whole thing if I don't like the drawing and redrawing it again. And for me, that's really important because I'm cheap again. But it also it doesn't soak it in, and that's where I get like all those messy bludgeon things. And I could get back pretty much to white. Now, I think with good watercolor paper, you could do that now too. So, but anyhow, so that I use this, and the other thing I've been using a lot is that the Stillman Bird sketchbooks, they have sheets. I don't know where you could buy them, but I started using them, and they're a lot of fun because they keep the colors bright. But I need a flat surface because I draw too much. So I met my husband. Any more questions? That was another thing my mother said to me. You get married, and my mother was a good mother, so as I'm saying these stories to you, it's not really nice, but you know, she was also one from the world that if you don't get married, your college sweetheart, you're basically screwed, right? So, and after 40, forget it. And so I met him when I was 50. And I went to a Jewish hiking group, which again is an oxymoron. And the thing is that I went there to get in shape, and the poor guy met me. So now I have to hike. He's kayaking today somewhere on the Hudson.
I guess you're glad you're here.
Well, yeah.
Is he an artist?
No, he's the complete opposite of me. He is smart. He worked for the health department. I see a hand.
You said that in the old media paper that you use, the paint doesn't really soak in that much.
Yeah.
Does that mean you can't get any soft edges?
You know what? Yeah, I can get real soft edges.
You can?
Yeah, I'll show you right now. Right here, I'll soften this edge up. How's that for a soft edge? Now another thing here, if you see this woman here, she has white pants. Now I could change things if I want, but one of the things, like every time I put a line in, I always say, do I put a positive line or a negative line? So right here, I'm going to put in the darks, so that way she pops out. Then I could just throw it. I don't care that part over there. It took me a long time to realize that those type of things are really cool. I also try to make my lines go, I take out the wrinkles. Like, people are never going to see your photograph. So you don't have to put every detail that's there.
Do you prefer the cakes to the tube?
This is tubes.
Oh, you put it in.
I put it in there, and
You
when a
always use
color,
it fresh?
excuse me?
Do you always use it fresh?
No, I'm cheap. No, I'll pile in I'll pile in, like if a color runs, I'll pile in a different color that I'm not supposed to have there.
Because I'm really impressed with how rich the colors are and the deepness of it. Is that the paper or is that the paint?
It's a technique, but you know, it's a technique. It also is that this thing, I have a love-hate relationship, but this is my traveling one. And when I notice with this one, it does keep the paints very moist. At home, I have to throw more water on it. What I hate about this is that when I leave, I don't remember to put in a plastic and paper on top of it. I have sketchbooks that have been destroyed because of this. So I have a love-hate relationship with this. The woman that created it, and like I heard that the ultimate workshop teachers, they use a $350 palette, and it takes them 3 months to get this palette online. This woman was a workshop junkie, and she said that's a little bit crazy. So she created this, which for I think $60 or $70, which is like an imitation of theirs. Yeah, I'm still just not, whoops, look at that. The thing is that I'm trying also to make, like, again, the graphic designer, I'm not worrying for the little details of these people. I'm trying to just make right now their shapes, like if you were doing gesture drawing, into one shape, and then at a point, I'll pull it out.
Do you always start with the foreground painting?
No. John Salmon, when he usually goes to the most difficult part first.
I'm gonna try to zoom in just a
Okay.
little bit for you.
But, okay,
A little cockeyed, but I think you can see it better, right? It's all right?
okay. John Salmon would say he'd go the most detailed part of the painting first, because if not, you throw it, because you don't want to throw the whole painting away. Again, that's the advice I like to give people, but what I usually do is that I'll go for the part that excites me first, and because I feel like if I get a part done that I like, then maybe the painting will work. And the part that's really difficult, which could be the main part, like with the guy, I'll leave to last. So I don't recommend that, the way I do it. Like right now, I'm going over places, I'm trying to say, what could I leave you with, because I'm not going to finish the painting. So in my head, I'm thinking of places where I could go that might give you something that will help you, so is where my brain's going. Now see, I'm looking here, because this is dry now. Because I have to wait if I want to have hard edges till it dries. And I'm going to take the little bit smaller brush. Just throw that in. I'll go over, I don't know, some people know how many layers they'll go over. Sometimes, I can't even count at times.
You go over many times.
I go over, yeah. My method of working is that I'll go, I think I'm done with the painting about 5 times, and I'll keep piling and piling and piling. I'm envious I mean, that's why a lot of the times I'm trying to do more outdoor painting and figure drawing, because that, you got to get it right. You can't have a model sit there for 6 weeks. So my basis is based on being a neurotic person. So I try my darndest. That's what figure drawing does for me. I don't think I'll make my master's. Now, I'm going to, I drew this over here bigger. Is that off the painting? But just to do a little type for you guys. Again, like when I do type, the first thing I would do is, like in that case, it's a Sardis little thing. It's white type, but there's always a little texture there. So I would just throw a little lines in like that. I'm going to let it dry for about a second. And then after that, I slowly draw around it. So if this type is yellow, right, I would put the yellow down first.
You have a steady hand.
Still, every week it's a little bit less. I still have no problem throwing a little blue in here for the edges just to give it a little zing. But I also try not to get it accurate, because if you get it, one thing with type, if you get it really, really accurate, like even when I use rules in my paintings, and that's dangerous, because if you get anything really, really accurate, that's where your eye go. So you want things not to be perfect so people don't look there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like I did one painting, I had Hebrew words in it. Now, I'm Jewish, I love my people, but we're very critical. So I went to my friend who was a rabbi's daughter. I said, Rhea, could you translate this before I do the painting and make sure that the Hebrew's correct? Because I said, I'm putting it in a show in a temple, and I know that I'm screwed. So, sure enough, a guy comes up to me and said, you mixed a nud and a yun up. You reversed them. I'm like, Hebrew school, 13, I'm out. I don't know. So the best part was it was a red dot on it. So I said, well, it's not my problem anymore. I asked my friend, I go, what was it with you? She goes, Dorrie, it's just a nud and a yun until you turn it around. I go, what was the big problem? I had a baby at home.
Why is it you don't mix your purples? Almost everybody I've ever met mixes the purples.
I do. With
But
blue.
you said you used violet.
Yeah, I use a Lycerium red. Yeah. I mix everything, and I don't, it's weird because my husband, when he saw me doing this, he said, you usually don't use that red. And I just felt like using it this time. But, so that's how you would do that. I also put, when I do type on a line, I put a rule there. Why? Because it makes the eye close it up. And the next thing is that a lot of things like, what I say to people when they do type, trust the person the sign you're designing, trust that art director was good. And try to do the spacing of whatever that sign is. Don't try measuring it out and try to have the space in between each letter correct. Because that's not how type is done. Type is done visually, like you look at it and to try to space it correctly. My best example is Rubino. If anybody saw, I don't know if he changed his sign. Rubino, when he came out, spent over $300 million for its type sign and for a logo. And the logo was, the spacing was off, so it looked like Rub-ino. And then, which really drove me even crazy, he put on United States, and he forgot that Hawaii and Alaska might be states too. So he spent $1 million for a logo that said Unino with only 48 states to support him. Now in the shadows here, I'm going to go back to the warm colors a little bit. That throw in a little blue to get a little green. And I'm just going to make it even a little bit darker now. What I love about this brush, it really lets it go, it lets me make it more paint, like more brush stroking. Could take this red out again, this yellow. Any more questions? I already told my husband's story, I don't know what else to say.
You didn't say how you met him.
Oh, I met him at a Jewish mosaic hiking group
Oh, yes.
in my friend's house. We were seeing some stupid hiking movie. And we didn't go out for till 6 months later. I think because I didn't know when we went out because he wouldn't go out with me because he said he was dating somebody else. Then we were out on it, so I thought we were going out as friends. I didn't even know when we started dating. I didn't even know when he moved in one day. I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going home to your place." I'm like, "When did you move in?" Now this area here is cold, so that's dry. So right now those people are going to be small out of focus. Now I'm going to throw in this red because you got to have a little of this red in every painting. Now that was cadmium red.
Dorrie, do you think we could move your...
Oh,
Wait,
The
just
other
move
way.
it to your left a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
To get the painting more in the...
That's good. That's fine. Perfect, great.
Thanks.
I've been told I move around too much.
Well, now we're closer.
Through a little of the burnt sienna that I said I was allowed to use for the skin in the background. Here, I'm not going to try to get these faces. I'm just going to plop lines like that in.
Is this storage as absorbent as watercolor paper, or is it less absorbent?
It stays on top.
It's less absorbent.
Yeah.
But it's not like hot press
No. It's not like Yupo where your fingerprints come on it,
or hot press.
where you could peel it off. No. If you want to, afterwards, you could come up and see some of the paper.
Is it the kind of board where you could lift it and go back to the white of the board?
Pretty much, yeah. Except if you use some stain colors.
Right.
But with the, magic eraser and things like that.
What's it called again?
It's called Strathmore Wet Media Board. You could only buy it online.
From whom?
Cheap Joe's.
Okay.
you know, any of the stores.
And since it's a board, do you mat them? Or is it not?
I don't frame my paintings unless I get in the show, and then if you get in the show, you have to have a white mat for
Yeah.
2 inches, and then you frame it. But besides that, I don't frame them. I am not Martha Stewart, and I will pick the wrong frame if I had to do it for clients. In the face, like the purple lighting and all is on his face, so I could get away with a little bit more of a bright red. Now, in the background, I am not going to, if I painted all the detail in the background, you wouldn't see the people. You would be caring more about the background. So like, I know, and you can see it in that, the background, I'm just gonna do a little bit. And that's going to be kept light. If you see, I'm just going to be painting the boxes, so it kind of looks like the sky. See how I got to the small brush and I didn't even know it? I paint pretty wet. Throw a little of her shadows here. So quiet here.
It's quiet, we're watching you.
Did you go to art school?
No, because again, I went to university. I went for graphic design. So I took all my electives in fine arts because I knew I would get an A in them. But no, like I said, my parents, and I took one calculus class because my parents thought that I would get, you know, I would major in math and, you know, get out of this thing. And then even when I graduated, my dad tried to get me a job as a tax assistant because he worked for the IRS. And it's funny because I think my story, when I was younger, until I started teaching, I thought my story was rare and I was special and my mother was a terrible person. But then I kind of realized that most parents do the same thing. And if anything, it made me stronger. Because if you want to go into art, like, you really, like, I switched when I was just met my husband. And we were getting married. I said, what do you think of me switching from fine art? And he said, okay. And, you know, and like, I thought I was just going to go into retirement. And like, when I started selling paintings and getting jobs, like he said, you didn't think this was going to work? I go, not really, no. So it's good to start a marriage on honesty. So I couldn't do this now if he didn't believe in me. His thing here, I will, like, again, like, another thing that I do is that I'll photograph it, I'll also print it out light, because I can't get the details on this. And I need the details so I could break the rules. Like, I need to know where his elbow is bending and all that.
Could you clarify the difference between what you say is commercial art and your type of fine
Could you repeat the question? I can't hear it back here.
Okay, it's
Come closer.
basically the difference between graphic design and fine art. As a graphic designer, you do it for somebody else. You know, and like I have no ego. If I do a painting, if my client likes it, it's in their house, I'm never going to see it. But you're making a living, and it's not about you, it's about selling a product. As a graphic designer, I did logos, I did brochures, I did ads, it was commercial stuff. Now, I also think some of the best watercolor oil wash painters were graphic designers, were illustrators of the 80s. If you ever looked at, I used to look at TV guides and say, this is what I want to do for a living. I said, who would ever want to paint one painting and be in a museum when you could be on a cover of a TV guide? And, you know, and this is what I thought as a kid. And like, if you look at Bob Peak and, let's see, Mark English, Bernie Fuse, I wake up every morning still and I have a print of Bernie Fuse in my house, and this is what gets me going and knowing about how to use good colors. You know, they're just amazing artists. So that's the big difference. Other difference is that when I switched from graphic design, nobody ever asked me how I was making a living. When I became a fine artist, every time I'm with a group of people, they say, do you make money at that?
Can you?
Shockingly, yes. But you need somebody that has health care.
Dorrie, can you talk about your Bryant Park experience?
I have under contract, no. It was, I recommend anybody try doing it because you're getting paid to sit in a room and paint. And like, that's all you do. It's exhausting almost, because 2 weeks you go in there, they have a sign that says, do not disturb the artist.
It's not plein air?
It's plein air. And like, again, and then when I got it, and if you want that experience, you should have New York paintings in your portfolio, because that's what they look for.
It's an outdoor show, right?
No, it's, Bryant Park, there's a thing, there's a artist in residence. And what it is that for 2 weeks, you paint in Bryant Park. And then at the end, you give them your paintings. So, as a graphic designer, difference between a fine artist, I was thinking in my head, how many paintings do I need to get done? Because they don't get, like, one of my paintings could take 2 weeks. And a plein air painter, their style is that you paint 50 paintings and then you get a few good ones. It's a different philosophy. So they want the same as a plein air painter. When I walked in, they said, we want one of your paintings. I'm like, that takes me a month to do. I said, and you have to keep the people still for that. I said, I think it's a problem in the park. So I gave them, I had to change my style, and it was a great experience. I really learned how to do plein air. They don't bother you. They basically leave you alone, and then you don't even meet people. They just throw money at you at the end. And then you give them your paintings and say goodbye to them.
Can you photograph or take some remembrance of your paintings?
I scanned them up. They got mad at me a little bit. I said, could I sell the prints? They're like, no, they're ours. So they
Actually, that's wrong, I think.
right.
The artist retains
Yes,
reproduction, I believe.
Not you sign it away.
Oh, you signed it,
Oh.
okay.
So, but the thing is that it's just 2 weeks of your life, and it's a challenge of something that there's no other, I don't think there's any other challenge like that anywhere that I know.
I hope you got more than a $500 gift certificate for being there. For
No, you got 2,000.
Plus,
Yeah, you got 2,500.
Okay.
what did they do with the paintings?
Yeah, what happens to your paintings?
We have stories about it from. They say they're going to do a big show. The people that are, I say they're probably dusting off in some basement. I heard a story that they said they were going to put them in the bathroom and hang them around the places. And they're going to invite you to the show afterwards.
So you have to paint a minimum amount of paintings? I mean, is it 1, 2, 3, 4?
You learn. One guy said one painting. He was oil painting, and I saw their disgust. So I was the next one. So I knew I wasn't going to go down. Right, I wasn't going to go down his level. So I realized that this is a painting in my world, but this is a painting in their world. So I did a lot of sketches and things like that. I did, they never asked me. So every day I said, look, at the end I said I did 14 altogether. They're like, oh, you're a genius. It's like only because.
Do they expect oil painters to produce the same as watercolorists?
Yeah.
Well, they don't know.
Yeah.
So you. Now I put a scarf on him because I felt that it needed some red. And now this red, I threw in, as you see it, you get to a certain point and you go, oh my God, and you start throwing in, you break all your rules. So if you look at that, I'm throwing in the cadmium red. And
Do
the
a lot of people try to become artist in residence?
I was surprised how little. They said there was like 40 that entered and only 4 picked. And like somebody said to me, like, well, that's good odds in New York. I said, I think American Watercolor Society, when there's 900 million entries, so to me, 40 is a good odds.
Yeah.
When were you there?
I was there 2 years ago, when it was really, really hot.
In September?
Yes, when I thought I got to pick when I wanted to go there, so I thought, oh, this is going to be a great time, it'd be really cool. No bad hair days. It was like a heat wave.
Were you there same time as Angela?
I was there. No, she was there after me.
Marilyn?
And
You know Marilyn Rose?
she was there a year before me.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know many of the other participants?
You met all of them. So you get. I met Ann for about 20 minutes, and then we became Facebook friends. So they take a photograph of you. I had to stand next to Ann, which was the worst nightmare because she's so pretty and skinny.
So the experience for the patron is really to go and watch the artist paint, because you never get to see the paintings otherwise, right?
I think so. I mean, and it was funny because that I found entertaining. For me, I had friends that I haven't seen come and visit me, which was nice. Then you had people that were from other countries, and they would take. I was like a photograph opportunity for them.
Who is Brian Park?
Excuse me?
Who is Brian Park? I mean, who organizes this store?
Okay.
What is
Those are questions. Okay, now I do things, as you can see, I'm not. I saw the thing. Who Brian Park is? I think I should know these things. This is probably why I don't get the popularity vote. There's a guy. The person that owns Brian Park. His wife is an art lover. So she gives the money for this every year. I think, I never met them, I never saw anybody, you know. Somebody mentioned, I think one of the other people said, did you meet so-and-so? And I'm like, who is he? I could have been talking to him and not know.
So,
It's not just
so, did the-
Excuse me?
so only 2 people own all these paintings?
No, Bryant Park Corporation does. And like,
Corporation.
I think like their goal is to have a show with all these paintings. But that was, I think Marilyn Rose will tell you the same story. She was 3 years ago. I was 2 years ago. And I haven't heard from them, you know, afterwards. You know, and, you know, at a point is that I don't really care because it was an experience, it was such an amazing experience being there. And like, so for me, that's, you know, I leave it at that. You know, like,
But I think having an artist in residence painting there is an attraction that they want to bring to the park.
absolutely.
Their idea is to bring people for the merry-go-round, the lunch, or the shops, or whatever. So you were the attraction.
Oh, and I
You
pissed
were
off.
the main attraction in the park.
Oh no, I pissed off the people from the merry-go-round. I wanted to paint there. I pissed off a lot of people because I wanted to paint by the game things, and the people in the games wanted people to play the game. So I was sitting at a table. So I called them up. I said, could you speak to my boss? I go, what? I'm allowed to sit here. Well, all the patrons were mad at me because I was taking their table.
Yeah.
So I pissed off a lot of people there, which is usually what I do, but
But they didn't throw stones or anything.
they were close that time. You never want to piss off retired men that play I didn't know there was like, if you ever see the chess part there, they're like gambling there. Like this high stakes going there.
They're serious.
Yeah, and I was taking their space. I'm sure Anne, because she's so beautiful, she could take their space, but.
So you moved around the whole time you were there, that you were in different locales.
The first week I moved, the first week I did. The second week, I decided to take a challenge and see if I could do a big painting in like a short time. So there's me doing plein air. I took photographs first with a ruler, looking at a building, counting it was a fascinating experience because there were people that were walking to work that were intentionally walking right by me to see how far I got or didn't get. So all in all, like, you know, I work alone in my apartment, in my house, and the only person that sometimes I see is my husband. So it was really nice. Like Bryant Park everybody should go there. It's an amazing park.
Did anyone come up to you and ask you if you were an artist?
Funny story about that. My first show was at Tenafly JCC, and I'm hanging my paintings. And like, to become an art director, I earned that. The artist thing, I never got the title. So I'm sitting there hanging the paintings, and this woman with these 5-year-old kids walked by me, and the teacher goes, "There's an artist." And of course, I'm looking over my shoulder to see who they're talking about. And then I realized, and then after she did that, she goes, "By the way, we're now going to wash our hands in the bathroom. After you go to the bathroom, make sure to say the ABCs." So those are those 2 kids' memories.
Did you paint flat in the park?
Excuse me?
Did you paint flat?
I found tables. Like I have one of those easels, and I have a very expensive one, but when you start it's not comfortable for me to paint. So I just would find there's a lot of tables that I just found places that I could be away from people. I became friends with the 2 homeless men there. It was a wonderful experience.
You rolled it too.
Now, see, I'm still not using that many colors, but I'm just slowly building up dimension. I'm going to throw in a little building over here. Again, like, these windows excited me for some weird reason. But these are gonna have to stay light, because if I get too dark here, that means I'm gonna have to come back in here and make that darker. I'm gonna use my flat brush to get it nice and flat. If you notice, like, I don't use that much paint. That's how cheap I am.
And you use a ruler.
I'm not exactly a
No
teacher.
problem with that.
Well-
A lot of teachers don't aim ruler, but not like we use a ruler. For anything.
But the thing is that as you teach more, you realize those rules are there you start off with the rules and then you break the rules. If I could paint as fast as Anne does, and do as many paintings as quality as she does without a ruler, I would not be using a ruler too.
She's very
Does she
good.
do buildings with windows and things?
Oh, she's
No.
That's really important to
fantastic.
use a ruler for that.
In oil, too.
When she did a demo here, she did acrylic. Was she using watercolor or acrylic as in the form?
I think she used both. But there's a lot of different philosophies of painting. I'm from I'm nuts, I'm a slow painter school. I'm gonna have to paint one painting and I can't make mistakes rules. A plein air, what they do is that they're painting 5, 10 paintings and they're learning every painting, and maybe 1 or 2 of those paintings will be masterpieces. They're doing more instinct. It's just a different style of painting. I personally think you learn more from trying and making up mistakes and learn, as I said before, I've learned more from screwing up than I could ever learn from doing it right. And I want my students to suffer just as much.
Where do you normally teach?
I teach, I teach in Paramus at night school once a week. I also teach workshops in Jersey Shore, up in New York State, wherever somebody wants me. I'm pretty excited. I just got asked to teach one for Cheap Joe. I should be in 2 years from now.
In Greenville, upstate?
Cheap Joe.
No, Cheap Joe. I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I have not got asked there yet. I did get asked. I'm doing one in Landgroven in Vermont in March or April. Do they have good food?
Excuse me?
Do they have good food there?
Been there.
They say they do. One of our members runs a workshop every summer there.
Better start my diet now. So I just go wherever people tell me, and my husband, it get anything to get me out of my house.
Does he join you when you go on these workshops?
Yeah. What he does is that I said, I did one in Touchstone, and he Googles to see if there's kayaking or hiking there. And then he says, you really shouldn't drive by yourself.
I don't know what time it's supposed to be.
You've got 10 more minutes.
John's in that.
Oh, no.
We usually break around 3:30.
Okay.
So you might have another 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay, you just, I'm not gonna do much. Just tell me when to stop, I stop, and then Now, any more questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Previously, did you say that Golden makes watercolor paints that you really like?
I love them, yeah. They're Q02, I think they're called.
You,
Yeah, I think that's the name. If you go, the golden watercolors, they just started making them. And like I said, if you take a look at that, you'll see. I don't know, and if it's a great thing, because like watercolors, they dry lighter, and like you used to that, right? And then you know, like you look at it when it's wet, you go, I'm amazing.
Yeah,
And then you dry, you go, what the?
it's very good.
Right?
Watching, yes.
Right? With these guys, so I have a mixed feeling about if I would tell students to use them, because they don't get to suffer. Because they what you see is what you get. And what I've been trying to play around with is that, because I haven't really used them with my city scenes yet, is that what would happen if I mixed my other paintings, being cheap, with those colors. And I think you could do, I've started doing that. But if all my bear paintings are done with that. So I think I'm done, or should I? I don't know. And
Hold it up.
I'm sure. As you can see, I really didn't get that far.
But it's nice.
Hold it.
I like this because it makes me skinny because the paint hides me. Thank you. Thank you. And like I said, I will slowly, in about 3 weeks, have this done. This always scares me. Thank you.
Okay.